back. Today, I'm talking about now that you found this application that was impossible to find, what the heck do you do with it? So, if you have gotten the application and you've seen all of the pages, all of the phases that are involved, I know at first it can be very overwhelming. But the three things I want to talk about today are the three hardest parts in the application process. Number one is policy and procedures. Number two is individual based processes and systems. And number three is the financial management. So if you have the application and you are struggling with all the phases, especially those three phases, this video is for you. So my name is Terria. I help aspiring providers to become licensed so they can build a six-figure agency supporting individuals with developmental disabilities. So first I want to talk about these policy and procedures. Most states require you to develop about 20 policy and procedures, 19 if you're not planning on utilizing transportation, but 20 if you are planning on utilizing transportation. And the policy and procedures have to be state approved, state requirements are needed in them. So it can be very confusing about what wording to use, where to start with these policy and procedures, figure out what they want in these policy and procedures. So that is one of the things that I help my clients with when they're going through this, the licensing process and figuring out how to develop these 20 policy and procedures. So it would be great if they provided you a blueprint to get through these policy and procedures, or at least gave you some type of outline or guideline on what to include in these policy and procedures. But unfortunately, when you get the application, it just says we need a system, we need a policy and procedure on how to, what's your protocol, for example, on abuse, neglect, and exploitation. So you just have to figure out what wording to put in there, what policy, to what type of steps that are approved in this type of process. So that is one of the most difficult parts in the policy and procedure. Number two, the system. So all of the systems, there's about 16 systems depending on what state you're in. But these systems needed to be developed and they need to be individualized. They need to be individual based to include integration. So if this is something that you're fairly new and you've only worked in the field, or you only know of, maybe a family member in the field, it may be difficult to figure out what the heck to put in these systems. Lastly, you need to develop a financial management. And again, if you're fairly new in the field, you've only worked in the field, it'll be difficult to figure out what the heck are the rates. What type of revenue can you have when your first 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? What's a realistic budget to set? How much are their expenses? What's involved in the expenses? It's very difficult right off the bat to figure out an operating budget if you have no clue of what your rates are, what's an acceptable amount of individuals that you can serve in your first 3 months. They tell you what's required to complete the certification and licensing process, but they don't give you guidelines and outlines. So that is what I help my clients with. I help them with a proven framework, a step-by-step framework on how to get through this certification and licensing process, how to figure out what's needed in the policy and procedures. I teach them what are acceptable systems, what are acceptable financial management, what's an acceptable budget, what's an acceptable policy for abuse, neglect, and exploitation. It's almost impossible if this is not something that you're familiar with, or if you've run a company supporting individuals with developmental disabilities. So if you are somebody that has now got this application and, it looks like gibberish to you or another language to you, please reach out to me. That is what I do. I support people in getting through this licensing process so that they can have a six-figure agency supporting individuals with developmental disabilities. Thank you. See you guys next time.